Risk and behavioral scientist Dr. Shweta Chakraborty. Doctor, thanks so much for coming on here. First off, I want to get right to the news here in the States. 12 confirmed cases here in the States of the coronavirus. One of the biggest ones here we're learning, an infant contracting the virus. What do we know about this? How does this change the game, if you will?
And it's very worrying, absolutely. This so far has not been considered a pandemic, but it's these types of reports that put experts around the world on high alert. If we're now seeing transmission of this virus across generations, so this infant may have contracted coronavirus in the womb or after birth in close contact with his or her mother. And so that is a generational transmission that would then, if we continue to see that happen and across multiple countries, would then constitute a pandemic. We're still not there yet, and it's critical to note that it is still a relatively low risk of contracting coronavirus for U.S. Citizens in the United States. Still, the seasonal flu is a much higher risk. We have close to 20,000 deaths now attributed to the seasonal flu and up to potentially 26 million Americans affected. So please keep in context that the coronavirus is still, relative to the flu, a low concern. That being said, it could become a greater risk. If we continue to see the rate of transmission increase within countries and across countries, it's very likely that this will then become a pandemic level, like HIV, which affected 35 million people, like Spanish flu in the early 20th century, which ultimately infected 500 million people. It could get to that, but as of right now, it is still a relatively low risk.
I want to get back to the infant that contracted the virus. In your experience as a medical professional, is this typical when you compare this with the flu? How can our viewers understand what they're seeing there?
So I'm a risk and behavioral scientist. I'm not a medical doctor, but transmission can vary across disease states. And in this case, when you see that generational hop, that's when the alarm bells rise across healthcare professionals globally. So this is the kind of virus that you need to nip in the bud before it gets to that point of generational transmission. The way to do that is we need to look at preventative measures. And even now that we're in the middle of an outbreak, we are still in the middle of flu season as well. So the same precautions that you would take for the flu is what's being advised for those who potentially are concerned about contracting and transmitting coronavirus. The fatality rate is significantly higher for corona than for the flu. It is 2% versus the flu, which is 0.1%. So both of these things should be, the same advice should be heeded. And corona is more worrying if and when it's contracted, but ultimately we have immunity for the seasonal flu that we have through vaccinations, that we have through treatment protocols, and that's the type of thing that is being actively developed now for corona. Once we have those systems in place, then the risk of transmitting and recovering from corona reduces significantly. But right now, the advice to anyone who is showcasing symptoms is to rule out the seasonal flu and then to seek immediate attention of medical professionals.
Real quick, last question for you. As you talk about precautions here, a lot of travel bans happening, traveling to mainland China, also Hong Kong with American Airlines. Is all of this necessary? Is this a precaution? What's your thought on that?
So the idea that this virus can be contained it's nice to think that way, but ultimately the virus has already left China. So at this point, quarantines, evacuations, a few hundreds of people or thousands of people really are neither here nor there. Now it's a matter of how soon before what's inevitably going to happen is going to happen. It's just these types of measures delay the inevitable. So this virus is going to run its course. What we need to be vigilant of as a global community is how to mitigate against it and how to prevent something like this from coming again in the future, because we know that there's 1.67 million viruses not harming anyone at the moment, but potentially could break out. So we need to be proactive in managing this.
All right, that's the first time I've heard that there. That's an interesting point you bring up, Dr. Shweta Chakraborty. Thank you very much, risk and behavioral scientist. We appreciate your time.